Your mom, I mean, we hear about this often, the one in every single chain, the one in every generation,
yes.
the one in every family that risks it all.
I used to always say that I'm the transitional character, and it might have been her, right?
Yeah.
She was the first one to say, hey, I'm going to the United States of America and I'm gonna try to create a better life.
By her bravery and her courage, I mean, that actually is making me emotional. Like, she literally changed your generation for you and your kids and their kids forever.
Yes.
That to me is like just so inspiring.
I am an immigrant, right? When you're growing up the way that I grew up, you don't really know how special the journey truly is, you know, because you're caught up in the everyday survival of the journey. It's become part of my DNA. And that's why a lot of people don't understand the immigrant mindset.
You know how to hustle, you know how to work hard. You will never go broke. You will never be poor as long as you don't spend more than you make.
A couple things separate the 1% from a lot of people. I feel like people aren't creative enough. And then I feel like people give up too soon.
What is also valuable is there's nothing special about us. There's nothing unique. I don't know about you, but I wasn't the smartest. I wasn't the talented. I was naive enough to just go after it and try, because if somebody else could do it and we have proof all around us, then why can't you? All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the show. I am really excited to have you here with me and for you to be able to meet this incredible guest, Carlos Reyes. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me, Candy.
I'm so glad. I wish we would have been rolling this entire time because we almost had a conversation prior to the conversation. But I want to be able to share your incredible story, because I think right now too, we're coming into an election cycle, there's so much about who you are, what you've done, what your mom did for you, that I think that would really speak to our audience of entrepreneurs and of investors. So if someone follows you, they might think that you're the business guy and that you have all these things, which you do. But I love how you came to this country. Can you share a little bit with that with our audience?
Absolutely. You know, it's the older I get, the less and less and less that you hear about my kind of story. Because, you know, America was founded at one point on, off immigrants, right? And, you know, it's like, here, I'll give you an example. I got buddies like Ryan Pineda, like his dad's an immigrant, right? Chris Crone, his grandpa was an immigrant. You see how it starts to fade away, right? Well, I am an immigrant, right? I am what a lot of the new generation, you know, I am where they came from, you know what I mean? And that's, I never really used to think much of it, you know, because when you're growing up the way that I grew up, you know, you're just so occupied trying to survive that you don't really know how special the journey truly is, you know, because you're caught up in the everyday survival of the journey, you know what I mean? But I will say this, you know, my mother, God bless her, you know, I love that woman so much. Just saw her yesterday. She when she was, you know, in her mid-20s and she had us, my father, unfortunately, you know, something deeply rooted caused his behavior to be very abusive and toxic. My mom, literally at 2/2.5 years, and me being 2.5 years old, my father used to come home and he used to be on coke. He was working as a federale, like in the police force in Mexico, Sonora specifically, northern part. He used to come home drunk, coked out, beat my mom. It got to the point where there was one incident that happened where my mom just pulled the plug completely, finally. She took 5 years of abuse, 5 years. And that was so hard. You know, her and I, now that she's older and I'm older, we have these conversations now, you know, like friends, right? Because I probably couldn't understand this when I was growing up. She said, you know, son, there was one incident when he came home and he beat me up. He thought that I had a man. He was delusional. It was probably because of the stuff he was doing on the street. Came home looking for a guy under the bed, beats me up, puts me and you against the wall, and starts shooting at us, not to kill us, but just for whatever situation he had going on. And that was it. I pulled the plug. She says, I took you, I took your brother, and we drove an hour and a half south to your grandparents' house. and we got away from him completely. Finally, it took me 5 years of constant abuse to leave him. 5 years.
To have
Can
like
you
the
imagine?
tipping point, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where it was like, okay, something happened where it was like, okay, this guy's gonna kill us.
No more,
right?
yeah.
Unfortunately, right? And 5 years, boom, we go down to my grandparents' house, and when we're there, she has this really, hard talk with my grandparents, which, by the way, it's the dynamic is so crazy. Why? Because my grandparents were my father's parents.
Oh my gosh.
How crazy is that, right?
Wow.
So she goes down, and he respects them enough to know, okay, I can't go over there. I can't go over there. Those are my parents, and they're telling me to stay away. Thank God.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the way it worked out, exactly,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, unfortunately, my father was an abusive, narcissist. You know what I mean? And he had a lot of deeply rooted issues that caused his behavior to be the way. I found this out later when him and I started trying to form a relationship when I was 27. Okay, has this hard talk with my grandparents in Mexico, and the part of town where we lived at. My grandfather built this little 350 square foot home, and I always put it on my presentation, right? He built this house. Literally, the walls were made out of plywood, held by wood, 4x4s, and the roof was laminate, like laminate roofing. Okay, like old school. The floor was dirt, the roads were dirt, and in the backyard we had a washing board, and we hung our clothes on wires. And he also built what's called like a back house, where like a porta potty, right? In the back where we would use the restroom, and we didn't have running water. There was no electricity or running water in that part of town. So the way that we got our light at night was literally like butane and gas lamps. That was my childhood, and my mom had this really hard talk with my grandparents and said, hey, this isn't. There's no future here. Yeah. There's no future here. I'm going to cross over to the United States of America. Can you guys please make the sacrifices with me for the betterment of my sons? Can you watch them? And as difficult as it was, because they were already done raising their kids. They were already in their 60s, 60s and 70s, and they said yes. They said yes. We'll watch them. We'll take care of them. We understand. Go. You see how amazing it is that nobody succeeds alone?
Yeah.
Everybody plays a part, and I'm a little emotional actually even talking about it, right? Because I know how much of a sacrifice that was for my grandparents to watch us as grandkids while she made an attempt in America to try to create a better life for us, right?
And even your mom, right? Like,
well, imagine being a single mom,
a single woman,
a single woman
going to another country.
So anyway, so my mom comes over. She comes over to California first, the San Diego area, right? Escondido specifically. The city was called Escondido, and she grinded it out. And a few years later, she went back and she went and she fetched for me and my brother. And this was our first attempt at the American dream. So she brings us up to Tijuana, Mexico, which is a border right between San Diego and so California and Mexico. And my aunt has a house there, and we're kind of just cooped up there, right, until we can get over. This was the whole strategy. My mom was just something else. And boom, first attempt, we go through a sewer canal, we get caught, we get thrown back out. And the immigration folks at that time, the Border Patrol, had enough empathy on my mom. Imagine you're seeing this woman, right, with carrying one of her sons on her left hand and dragging me with her right hand, going through the sewer canal. They didn't even want to throw us in the truck. They were just like, hey, just go back, right? Praise God, we went back, and about 48 hours later, we made another attempt, and we pushed through. The year was around 1991, actually.
1991. So let's backpack just one step. So when your mom came here successfully the first time, she came here illegally.
In the 80s, late 80s.
Right?
She received amnesty when she came without me, right?
Okay.
She left us. She received amnesty in the late 80s because she was working in the fields.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, in California.
But that didn't apply to you.
No, just to her.
Okay. So
we were illegal. She was legal. We were illegal.
Got it.
And my mom is such a bold, courageous woman that she knew that if she got caught transporting, right?
Yeah, right.
Or her smuggling her 2 illegal sons, she would get her paperwork taken away. But she rolled the dice on herself and on us. And the second time we were successful. And we went to Escondido, and we were there for, you know, about a year and a half. We economically / financially just didn't make it. And my mom was like, hey, you know, we're not doing it. We're not making it. We're gonna have to go back to Mexico. And at that point, you can only imagine, you know, all the sacrifices. You know what I mean?
How long do you think that was before that
Let's see,
conversation?
2nd grade and part of 3rd grade.
Okay.
Because I in the 2nd grade, I did not speak any English, and I was getting made fun of every day. And it wasn't even like white people that were making fun of my English. It was Chicanos. I don't know if you know what Chicanos are. Chicanos are Mexican Americans.
Okay, yeah.
So they're Mexican or Latino, Hispanic people that were born in this country, right? That are American. They were the ones making fun of my English. It wasn't Mexicans. It wasn't blacks. It wasn't whites. It was my own. Because what happens is there's a sense of superiority, right? With Chicanos are like, you know, hey, I'm Mexican, but I'm born here and I speak English.
Oh my gosh.
It doesn't make any sense.
As opposed to thinking they're so grateful and having empathy for you.
That's just not where the world was back then, you know.
Yeah.
It's just the ignorance. So anyway, we didn't make it, and man, it was devastating, man. Driving back, and
so you did go back.
We all went back.
Year and a half in
Yeah.
America, and you got to come to the schools. You got to start interacting.
Yep, I went to Oak Hill
and then
Elementary
went back.
School in California. Yep, the Otters. So I remember she asked one of her friends that had a black Nissan Frontier truck extended, right? His name was Jaime, and she's like, hey, can you give us a ride and drop us off at the border back to Tijuana? We'll get picked up by our family, right? And I remember driving back from San Diego to TJ, and I remember, you know, we're just crying in the back seat. We're devastated, you know. All that sacrifice, all that time away, and we failed, and we feel like life is over. We're like, oh my God. You have to understand, Candy, once you've come to this country and you've experienced this, right? Yeah. And you got to go back to the poverty that we came from. Yeah. Think about what that feels like. You know what I mean? Right? And it is what it is. So we're driving back, and we're crying, we're bawling our eyes out in the back seat, and my mom looks back and says, she looks at me specifically because I was always the responsible one.
Older
I'm the oldest one, right?
Yeah.
So I was always her right-hand man. You know, I was always the one that was responsible and listened to her, you know. She looks back at me and says, hey son, don't worry about it. You know, I'm gonna come up with the plan, and we're gonna come back. I don't know how, but we're gonna come back, right? And I didn't know, you know, that I thought we were going to come back to California, right? But that wasn't the case. So we get there, we go back to living with my grandparents, and you know, it's pretty messed up that family is like your biggest doubters and haters.
Yeah, it's not the truth.
Right? With the exception of my grandfather and my grandmother, you know, rest in peace, you know, with the exception of them, all of her sisters, all of her brothers, they all were, I told you so, I told you so, you have to understand, my mother is the smallest. She's the youngest out of all of them. And through her and through me, we've been able to accomplish something that my family has never accomplished.
And isn't that a shame? Because I think anyone listening can relate to this, that no matter what you're struggling with, or who's your doubters, or who your haters are, even when it's your own family, if you have empathy and understanding for why they act that way, it's almost like it doesn't bother, at least for me, it doesn't bother me as much. Because look, for her, she was the first one that ever tried to get out, that tried to come to America. And rather than them seeing like, oh my gosh, it's so great that you're driving, hope you make it, it's like they were almost then glad that she came back, because then it shows that they're not a failure.
I think two things happened, right? One, I think that prior to her taking this shot and rolling the dice, I think they were projecting their own fears. You know, for some of them, you know, they don't know what they don't know, so they're in a loving way. They're saying, "Don't do that. It's too risky.
Keep you safe."
The other side, right? It's more like, you know, I'm not rooting for you because you're doing something that I didn't have the courage to do.
Exactly.
Right. So it could be double-sided. You know what I mean? Regardless, they all pointed their finger and said, "I told you so." Right. And my mom has always been the black sheep of the family because she's the youngest and she's the most courageous. And in my opinion, she's the most like creative / critical thinker. You know, I think that's where I get all of my stuff, my creativity from. But we come back and everybody's like, I told you so, blah, 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 blah. And my mom comes up with the plan, and the plan was very simple. She says, son, I'm going to go clean hotel and resort rooms in San Carlos Bay, because we went to a little town called Guaymas. Guaymas is 15 to 20 minutes away from this tourist area called San Carlos Bay in Sonora, okay? So anyway, San Carlos Bay, my mom's cleaning hotel rooms, and I start to bag groceries. I start to bag groceries at this retail grocery / Walmart looking, Walmart version called Lay, Ley.
So how long, obviously if you're bagging groceries, right, you were old enough to do that?
No, of course not.
Oh, so so there's no labor laws in Mexico.
I was in like the 6th grade.
Oh, gotcha.
I was no, there's no labor laws.
No labor laws.
There's no labor laws in Mexico.
So if you're 8, 10, 12, they'll hire you.
You can be grinding. You can be working somehow. So watch this. So we're doing this whole plan of like, okay, we got to save up enough money to get us back to the States. Her and I, just her and I. Okay, and I speak enough English. This place was located close to San Carlos, right? So the San Carlos, this was the closest grocery store and retail store to San Carlos Bay. So all the Americans would come, and I spoke enough English. My mom was making $30 a week cleaning hotel rooms. Guess what? I started making $10 to $12 a day because of the English that I knew. I would bag the groceries for the Americans. I would put it in a cart. I would take it to their trunk. I would nicely put it together, and then I would ask for my tip. When I'm telling you that I was making $10 to $12 a day in just tips, because I was working like 12, 14 hours a day. When I'm telling you that I became the breadwinner in the 6th grade of my family, it was one of the most, like the biggest blessings in our lives. Because of her and because of me, we were able to put this money together in less than 2 years and send her back on a bus to Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, so that's how you came here.
That's how we got here.
Your mom, I mean, we hear about this often, like the one in every single chain, the one in every generation, the one in every family that risks it all to go after something different.
Transitional characters. Yeah. That's what it's called.
And she literally changed by her bravery and her courage. I mean, that actually is making me emotional. Like she literally changed your generation for you and your kids and their kids forever. Yes. That to me is like just so inspiring.
You just unlocked something in my mindset. I used to always say that I'm the transitional character. It might have been her, right? Yeah. I'm the transitional character maybe because I'm the first, like multimillionaire in my family with all the businesses and all the stuff. But she was the first one to say, hey, I'm going to the United States of America and I'm going to try to create a better life. So she was a transitional character too.
Right,
you know
absolutely.
I mean?
Because if she didn't do what she did, you wouldn't have had the opportunity. That's right.
You and I wouldn't be on this podcast.
You wouldn't have the opportunity to have the busineses't the real estate and all of that. So I think that's amazing, especially when she had I know from, starting businesses really young, it wasn't really common, especially back in the late 90s. You're a female, you're on your own, you're starting a business. So I can't imagine how rare she was here with no husband, 2 babies, and she's trying to just make this name. I just wanted to honor that for a moment because I just think that took such courage and bravery.
Why do you think I respect women so much?
Yeah.
Because, women have saved my life. Women have saved my life. And I'll get into that through my grandmother, my mother, my wife, and then my first daughter, right? And I'll get into that, but watch this. So now we send her on a bus to Phoenix, and here goes another 2 years. Okay, it's about 1.5 to 2 years, and
she's here and you're still in Mexico.
I'm still in Mexico.
Wow,
we didn't
with
come
your
together.
grandparents.
Yes.
Wow.
Round number 2, right?
Wow.
So this time, she only goes and she gets me. She comes and gets me. Okay, she was smarter about it. It's easier to transition with one son instead of 2. So this time, and again, here, watch this. She has her paperwork. She has a green card. She has a visa. Right? And she brings me over to Nogales, Sonora, the border of Mexico and Arizona, and she pays a human smuggler $25 in 1996. I was actually in between the 6th grade in 7th grade. And the instructions that she gives me, she says, son, this man is going to take you to me on the other side of the fence, and I'm going to meet you at McDonald's right there in Nogales, Arizona. So Nogales, Sonora, Nogales, Arizona, right? Sure thing. You know, she leaves, she crosses the border.
Oh my God.
And she
leaves you with a man.
She leaves me with a human
that
smuggler.
You do not know.
When this dude told me to duck, run, crawl, hide, I did. And I remember this. I vividly remember, you know, we're running into this big hole in the fence in the Arizona border, and you do have that big old flashlight that the Homeland Security people are like, they're pointing and as soon as like, all right, as soon as he points that way, we're running and we're crossing through that hole, and then we're going straight to McDonald's to get you your mom. And sure thing, we jumped through this hole, and you know, we got to my mom. We got in a van, and then we made our way up to Phoenix, Arizona.
Wow.
And this was 1996, and then my paperwork process started in 1997.
Okay.
And then I got my work permit first, early 2000s, and then I got my permanent resident card in early 2000s, and then I became a citizen in 2012. So this was a very long.
So you've officially only.
I'm
like,
an American
for
citizen.
10 years though.
So we started in 97.
Oh, okay.
And then I became a citizen in 2012.
So if something would have happened between the late 90s to 2012, if you would have been convicted of a felony, do you run the risk of going back?
I would have been deported.
Deported.
And I would have been 86 from this country. I could never come back. I could never come back. That's happened to a lot of people I know.
And what do you think about, because I definitely want to get into your journey, but just because we touched on this topic, if you're okay to talk about it.
Absolutely.
What do you think about, we're in Arizona, we have a massive border crisis.
Jesus.
We have so many people
And we're not
coming
doing
in
anything about it, by the
through
way.
Texas, and you know, Ducey had the wall finished, and then Biden made him to take it down, and was going to fine him $5 million a day, and all of this crazy stuff. You have gone through it. You have come into this country. You've gone through the process.
Yep.
You've lived the American dream, but you didn't come here maybe in the beginning, maybe the proper way, if you will.
I came in as a child.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you see all these people coming in and pouring into our country through open borders, what do you think of that?
I don't agree with it, and it's getting more and more dangerous to keep open borders. You know, you got good people that are trying to get through, like myself, people that are really chasing a better life, but you have a lot of bad people that are not looking to do good, that are not looking to partake in the American dream, that are not looking to earn their position in America. There's a lot of bad people, and again, Mexico's not our enemy. However, right, the people that are enemies of America, where do you think they're going to come through? Where there's open borders, where there's easy access. I truly believe that, you know, we have to do our best as a country to enforce these laws for the protection and preservation of what we have. Because if we don't protect and preserve what we have, we're going to lose it.
So as a first generation immigrant, if it were up to you, would you finish the wall?
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have walls in our houses?
Yes, the whole way
Right?
around.
I mean, right? I got a security system. I live in a gated community. Like, what do you think?
Right.
You know what I mean? I feel a lot safer. I feel a lot safer living in a gated community. You know, having a security system. That's why it's like people are too emotional. And they're not logical, right? They're not logical. Just use your common sense. That's it. Use your common sense. There's a lot of bad people, unfortunately, coming through. You know, this isn't. We're not wanting to have these walls and closed borders because of the good people that are coming through. Absolutely not. Even though, you know, there could be an immigration problem, but it's the bad people that are coming in. You know, the people that are dealing drugs, the people that are sex trafficking. You know, I mean, the event that we're throwing in December, the cause that we're supporting is we want to stop children sex trafficking. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Right? Like, no, we have to do a much better job in every area that we're involved in right now as America, because we're going to lose what we have.
What do you think it is about the people that think that we should have open borders and we shouldn't finish this wall? What do you think it is that they really believe good can come from this in some way?
It's the people living in Cape Cod. It's the people that are out of touch with reality, honestly.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why. I actually was in Cape Cod. I took my family to Cape Cod last year for a beautiful vacation. And you go there, right? And you know, you got Martha's Vineyard, and it's like those type of people that are opinionated on things that they don't live here.
Yeah.
Why don't you ask, let's just run a poll. Let's not run a national poll. Let's run a border town poll.
Yeah.
And run a poll on what they feel, how they feel about what we should do with these borders. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like we should make decisions based off the people that are living in it. You know, not the people that are like 1,000 miles away.
So removed.
They're so removed. They have no clue. Oh, you know, we have to be more humane. You know, we have to, okay, if you want to be more humane, then, you know, donate towards a good cause or volunteer towards a good cause, right?
Yeah.
Or actually, why don't you come down and spend 2 weeks at a border town?
Yeah.
And then maybe let's see, if you still feel the way you feel about open borders, then you know what? Then I'll take your word for it. But if you're just sitting here from Massachusetts or Seattle giving an opinion about open borders, and you've never been involved, you know, then you shouldn't have an opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really scary to allow people to have opinions about things that have no knowledge of what's actually
100%.
happening. And that's why I love you of all people, you've been there on both sides of it. You've experienced it. So that's why so thank you for being able to share with that. Now, you come here, obviously a lot has happened from the late 90s until now.
Yep.
And you were the one, because of your mom coming here, that you really took it up 10, 12, 20 levels from what you had. What are some of the first things that if you were doing this now, if you were coming to America now, if you were starting from scratch now, and you only got to know some of the things that you've done, you don't know any people, you don't have anything that you have, but you were trying to build it all now, what are some of the things that you would do now as opposed to maybe what you did?
So I believe, you know, career-wise, there's 3 components, right? Or 3 paths that you can take. You can take the employee path, okay? You can grow, you can have a great career and make a good living and provide for your family and have a retirement plan and et cetera, right? You can become an entrepreneur, which I don't know if you ever heard Andy Elliott, 4 out of 5 millionaires are actually entrepreneurs. They're in a company. You know, they're in sales positions, they're in C-suite positions, whatever, but right, they have shares in the company, they have, you know, equity, whatever, right? Management, leadership, whatever. Or you can become an entrepreneur, right? Which is, you know, what we do. You can become an entrepreneur. So those are the 3 paths that you're gonna have. It's just a matter, you know, at the end of the day, Candy, for me, now that I've been on both sides, by the way, right? I came up as a service and salesperson. That's how, you know, I naturally, you know, my first job ever was at Best Buy as a sales rep.
That's so cool.
Right? As a sales rep, you know what I mean? So I came up as a salesperson, and you know, I just love people. You know, I love people, and that's the energy that you feel, because I truly do have a serving heart and an empathetic heart, and I love people. I will always love people.
I think you also, from my experience, you have a very appreciative heart, a very grateful heart. Like you can feel it, and I think that's why it translates to people, because you really feel grateful for the opportunities that you have had in this life and what you've created. But I'd like to unpack. I was going to ask you what the first job was. So Best Buy. So from Best Buy, how did you transition into the entrepreneurial world?
Watch this. So as soon as my mom brought me over, right, and we started my whole paperwork process, you have to understand, at that point, I had already created these habits of grinding as a kid, right, as a child. So right when I got over here, I was already in the 7th grade, okay? And these are the 2 things that I was doing in the 7th grade, okay? My mom couldn't really afford much. You know, she was making, at that point, $4, $5, $6 an hour working at LSG Sky Chefs at the Sky Harbor Airport, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly. So we didn't make a lot of money, okay? So what I had to do was 2 things. One, I had to help at construction sites. Okay, at that point I was getting paid cash. I was carrying a wheelbarrow, just cleaning up. Cleaning up. The foreman would give me cash. You know, as a student, you know, cleaning up at people, investors that were rehabbing houses. How do you think subconsciously I naturally became my first ever successful venture was real estate? You know, on the
you were around it. You were
I was around it. I was around it in the 7th and 8th grade. So that's one thing. The second thing that I did was I was the guy that got into, it was very risky. I was the guy that got into a big white van with a bunch of different kids, and I sold door-to-door candy.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Have you ever had someone door knock and say, hey, we're trying to raise money because we're going to Six Flags, and I got the peanut brittle, right? And I got these chocolates. Like, I did that for 2 years, right?
Oh, wow.
So I started grinding at an early age because I now had to continue to bring something to the table for my mom, okay? So then after my paperwork became legal, right? Boom, I started working, and I started making more money than my mom, you know, and all of my check would go towards our household. Yeah. We lived at this point. I remember, you know, bouncing around, and we would live in, you know, at one point, like, we would live in a studio, and then we graduated to a 1-bedroom, right? And then we graduated to a 2-bedroom. And by the way, these little 2 bedrooms, it wasn't what you think. It wasn't like a nice, you know, $900 a month or $1,000 a month kind of apartments. You know, these were like small little, you know, spots that were in the back of somebody's house, right? So I've been grinding, you know, since I was a kid, a teenager, a young adult, you know, so I've always had that work ethic, right?
Do you love it?
I do love it.
Yeah.
I do, but it's become part of my DNA.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people don't understand the immigrant mindset. We come here to work.
And you want to talk about job security? Like, everyone is talking about going to college and getting this and getting.
No.
You know how to hustle. You know how to work hard.
Man.
You will never go broke. You will never be poor as long as you don't spend more than you make. But I mean, for the most part, like, that's what we have such similar stories. I'm not an immigrant, but was born into poverty. You had a 1-bedroom apartment. I had a single wide trailer. We thought we were rich when we had a double wide trailer.
Love it.
You know, so I totally can relate. But the thing is it's almost like you put the power in your own hands when you're willing to work hard for it.
Yeah.
And so I love that about your story, and that how it just becomes part of who you are.
Yep. So if you're asking me, okay, so what got you to where you are today, right? As you can see, everything. Yeah. Everything. And, you know, at the time when we're going through the journey, right, and we're going through the process, we don't understand that all of that is going to equate to or compound to you know, being this polished, finished product or person, you know? Everything that I own today, it's because of that entire journey of, you know, immigrant mindset, the struggle of poverty, single mom, modeling after her, you know, seeing her work ethic, 2-3 jobs at a time, you know, and then once I was able to do it, right, getting into a place like Best Buy where now you're around people, and you know you got to have, you know, people skills and sales skills, right? Yeah. NLP, you know, like persuasion, everything, you know, and all of that, you know, eventually led up to 2013 when I just decided to really go back. By the way, I want you to know this. For many, many years, I came up the corporate ladder, right, with another company. It was a retail company, and I became one of the youngest managers in that organization at the age of 19. Awesome. Okay, I started there as a shift manager, making $10.25 an hour, and then for the next 10 years, I averaged $1.50 to $2 per year in raises. Oh, wow. That's how much of a rock star I was. Wow. You know, I was what you would call an entrepreneur. And I'll tell you why. Because I became a manager at 19, so I started managing people and started managing my own location at 19. And I was praise God, I was such a good employee, right? And I was very gung-ho. Like, I was all of, like, company first. Hey, Carlos, we need you to fix this store. Boom, here I go. Hey, Carlos, we need you up in Seattle and Tacoma. Boom, here I go. Hey, I need you in Vegas. Boom, here I go. Hey, I need you to run the district. Boom, here I go. Whatever was needed for me, I did that for over a decade.
So you
right?
were climbing.
Oh my God.
So this is 2012, 2013. What was your first business?
Real estate.
Real estate.
Watch
Okay.
this. So, but something happened in that corporate structure. I was working towards a position, which was a regional position, that was going to pay me. It was going to give me my first ever 6-figure annual salary, right? And I was working towards this position for 4 years. I was the number one person in line. And then something happened when that position finally became available. The individual that was supposed to give me this position, because I earned it, he handed it off to his cousin, best friend, cousin, and I was ranked number 1 in my company. He was ranked 17th, and I felt that it was very unfair and unjust, and it broke me, so hard that it was like, think about it, right? Like at this point, I have a wife, I have a daughter, I have a mortgage, I have car payments. I mean, this is like you pulled the rug from under me. You know what I mean? You crushed my dreams at that point. As an entrepreneur in a corporate structure. So what they did was this. They said, we understand you're very hurt about this, decision. We want you to take 2 days off, leave of absence, like pay time off, PTO.
Sure, yeah.
We'll take care of it. It was like their little carrot for doing whatever they did. So I took in the first week, Candy, I was so depressed. I watched, I think 5 seasons. I was this depressed, right?
Oh my gosh.
My wife knows that when I get depressed, I binge watch.
That's right. What was 5 seasons?
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
And my wife would come into the master bedroom and say, "Hey, you really gotta go outside, and like it's starting to really smell in here." Right? Like it was like, for me, it was like it was a bed, Game of Thrones, a shower, and food.
Wow.
That was it for 1 week. And then the second week, when I was really like, I was like, man, God, like, what do I do? Where do I go? I had all my eggs in this one basket. Yeah. What do I do now? Like, things will never be the same. I will never trust these people ever again, right? Yeah. So God gave me, now that I started asking questions, God gave me this vision and this epiphany, and he literally spoke to me. And I can tell you this, people think I'm crazy when I say, oh, God speaks to me. God speaks to all of us. We just have to ask the right questions, and we have to listen. Right? And when God speaks to you, you're not going to hear it in an audio like you're hearing me. You're going to think it, and you're going to hear it internally, and you're going to feel it. Yeah. Like it's going to be such a direct, certain talk that you're like, okay, God, I heard you. That's what I'm going to do. There's no question. When God speaks to you and he says, do this, you're doing it. And this is what he said. He says, my son, the reason why this didn't work out for you is because I have something bigger in mind. It's almost like, have you ever seen that meme on Instagram where the little girl is crying for her little teddy bear and Jesus is holding a huge teddy bear behind him? Yeah. And we're crying for this little teddy bear. What we think is what we want. But God has something so bigger that we just don't comprehend it, right? And he has to put us through these trials and tribulations so that he can present the big prize. You get what I'm saying?
That story, I'm so glad you shared that, because I know people listening are struggling with something, even if they're at a certain level in their life. Yep. Something can happen at any point that makes you think, wait, I worked for this. Yeah. I sacrificed for this. It
was hard.
But that redirection,
yeah.
that rejection that turns into redirection is so critical. But I think what's always important is realizing that in order to hear that voice, you have to be quiet. You have to be still. You can't have all these conscious thoughts going all the time and running so hard, because you're never going to hear that in all the noise.
Yes.
And I love that if that didn't happen to you, you wouldn't be where you are now. And it's why the challenges are so important, because the challenges didn't keep you from who you were created to be. That challenge made you closer to be who you were created to be. And I love that. I think that's, so from there, obviously that was God's redirection.
Yep.
And
2013.
so then 2013,
yep,
you said, okay, I'm going to go into real estate.
Yep. Watch this. I have a hard talk with the vice president, right? And I say, hey, I understand you guys did what you had to do. moving forward, I can no longer work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday and 7 a.m. to 3, 4, 5 p.m. on Saturdays, right? I was working 5, 6 days a week, I don't know, 60, 70 hours a week because we got paid overtime. And whenever you got paid overtime, it was a time and a half. So that's the way that I would make my money.
Nice.
I wouldn't make it on my salary. My overtime was almost as much as my salary. You know what I mean? I grinded, and that's your typical mindset of an employee, right? If I work harder or if I work more, I'll make more. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yep.
That was the mindset that I had back then. And three things happened. One, I read a book called Flip by Nick Reyes. It was a $10 book. By the way, I just want to let you know that something happened, something like God spoke to me and said, he didn't tell me what it was, by the way. He wasn't like, you're going to have a real estate investment company or
that would make it too easy.
You're going to create the next Apple, right? No.
That's right.
He just said, I got something else for you. And that was it. He lit a fire under me. So then I started, once God speaks to you, you got to go and start looking around to see what it is. You got to start taking shots to try to find your passion and what your purpose is, right? So I started doing different things, and I finally came across this one book. It was called Flip by Nick Reyes. It was $10. And again, everything started to click. Remember when I used to clean up those houses as a kid?
Yeah.
Right? The rehab houses,
work,
the remodeling.
Yeah.
And then, like everything that just started to click, and I'm like, wow, okay, there's this, and then this, I did this. I always wanted to do this. I remember I wrote this 8th grade paper. When you're about to graduate from 8th grade, they have you write out a paper of what you want your career to be. And for me, it was only 3 things. It was, I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, okay? I wanted to be a lawyer, okay, a criminal's defensive attorney, or I wanted to be a real estate investor.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Actually, there was 4 things. One, I wanted to be a police officer. And watch this. On the lawyer side, I was like, oh man, that's 8 years of school. On the police side, I did the physical test and I passed every test. I went to South Mountain, the South Mountain Academy, and I ran the mile and I did the sit-ups and I did all the testing that you can think of. And then they said, okay, its starting pay is $19 an hour. At that point, I was already making more than that. So I'm like, man, it doesn't seem, I'm going to risk my life and make less than what I'm making. Okay, so scratch that. See, process of elimination,
Absolutely.
Right? And then I'm like, okay, I want to be a Navy SEAL. So then my crazy butt started training for that. I started doing the swimming, the running, the pull-ups, the push-ups, the sit-ups. I started doing everything to become a Navy SEAL, right? As I'm reading this book, right? And there's a picture that I have where I'm like in crazy shape and I'm putting out bandit signs. Well, I was trained to be a Navy SEAL and I was training also to become a real estate investor.
Yeah.
Well, one of them hit before the other.
Yeah.
Watch this. So this book says, hey, to become a real estate investor or a real estate entrepreneur, you don't got to have money, you don't got to have credit, and you don't got to have a real estate license. So I was like, okay, check, check, and check, right? It says, but you got to do what I ask you to do. You need to put out 100 bandit signs every single weekend. So sure thing, I'm putting 100, I'm putting out 120 to 150. And every single bandit sign that I lay down on this freaking hard, dry earth, right? I'm praying over this bandit sign. Boom, boom. Every single bandit sign, I'm praying, right? So watch this. 6 months later, 2,400 bandit signs later, I get the phone call that changed my life. It was a Mexican lady who didn't speak English. Her name was Ana, and she had an investment property in West Phoenix, Maryvale specifically, and she was tired of being a landlord.
So wait a second, 2,400 signs?
2,400
I think
signs.
everyone needs to get 2 things out of what you just laid out there. You did 2,400 signs.
I didn't get paid for 6 months.
399 no's, essence, right? In essence.
Yes.
To get one yes. You know what I think is the difference is there are a lot of people that are not willing to do that. They do the first 100, maybe the second 100, and if they don't get that quick hit of that show of success, they quit.
3 feet
and that's
from goal.
when you fail.
3 feet from
Exactly.
goal.
So I think that's so valuable for people to hear what you did to get the first one and how you didn't quit. And then also that your clarity came from being in motion. You didn't just take that word that you felt God put on your heart and wait. You were trying things, you were tasting stuff,
Yep.
you were evaluating.
I was everywhere.
And I think that that's so important for
Yep.
people. Like if you don't first get a result, you have to keep moving forward to make sure, are you 3 feet from gold, or is this a door you're not supposed to kick down?
Yep.
And I think discernment only comes from doing the work and taking
Absolutely.
the action. So I love that you shared that.
You can ask anybody in here that's filming, right? If you make them a proposition and say, hey, you're going to become a multimillionaire. Actually, hold on, 2 things. Ready? Watch this. Hey, you're going to work for 6 months and you're not going to make $1.
Make a dime.
On the contrary, you're going to have to pay.
Yeah.
Like I was paying for these blank bandit signs, and my wife, this is why she's my soulmate, right? I started dating her when I was 17. My wife, every Wednesday was with a marker. I couldn't afford pre-printed signs for $1.25, but I could afford 25 to 50 cent blank signs. And then she would, with the marker, we buy houses cash, 480, da 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 da.
Love it.
She was making these every Wednesday for me, like clockwork, right? And I'm putting them out on Friday. And nobody wanted to join me, right? But anyway, back to my question, watch this. All right, you're gonna work for 6 months. You're actually gonna have to pay a couple $100 in marketing, but you're not gonna make $1 for 6 months, okay? Are you in or are you out?
Yep.
99% of people are gonna say, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. But watch this. You're gonna work for 6 months and you're not gonna make any money. You're gonna work hard, but you're not gonna make a cent. But down the road, 2, 3, 5 years down the road, you're gonna become a multimillionaire.
But you don't know when.
But you just don't know when.
That's right.
You see that?
I know.
So that's more appealing to someone, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But you don't know, and that's why you have to
don't know.
appreciate the journey.
You do.
Right?
And give up those short-term wins to play the long-term game. I started in brick and mortar. I lost money. I basically paid to work 12, 14 hours a day.
Learning tax.
Absolutely. 6 days a week, no vacations, nothing. But you don't know what you don't know. And I couldn't even imagine the life that I have now. Like even sitting here, like how is this even possible? Like I have 2 teenage parents and in a trailer. Like it's just, I think that people, when you have a reverence for life and the gift that it truly is, that it's such a gift to show up for and to just be able to help other people see that you gotta keep going. Like don't quit, don't give up. It's gonna be hard, but it's gonna be worth it. You just don't know when it's gonna pay off. I think it's just important for people to remember.
We're 2 underdogs.
Yeah.
We're 2 people that made it. We're part of that elite 1%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that a couple things separate us from a lot of people, or separate the 1% from a lot of people. One of my mentors, which is Cody, Cody Spurbs, Cody Sperber, he used to say, "You don't have a money problem, you have a creativity problem." Right? I feel like people aren't creative enough, and then I feel like people give up too soon.
Yeah.
Right? So actually 3 things. 1, you're not creative enough. 2, you don't have the work ethic. And 3, if you have those 2 things, you don't have the perseverance. You're giving up too soon. 3 feet from gold. You know what I'm saying?
Relentless persistence.
Exactly.
And but what is also valuable is there's nothing special about us. There's nothing unique. I don't know about you, but I wasn't the smartest. I wasn't the most. I wasn't the talented.
No.
I don't have something. They were asking me about hobbies. I don't really have anything I'm really that great at.
No.
But I was naive enough to just go after it and try, because if somebody else could do it and we have proof all around us, then why can't you? But you got to be willing to do the work. And that's what settles the score, your effort and your persistence.
Yep.
And your life has become that. I mean, so here you go from what you thought was a moment that you were depressed and eating food and not leaving your bedroom, to now you get that one house, that one yes.
Yep.
Unpack what happens after that.
That first deal, it's the proof of concept, right?
Yeah.
You and I both know that, once you see it happen once, you know that it can happen 1,000 more times. It's the least amount of money that I've ever made in a real estate transaction. It was $5,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I wholesaled this property in Maryville to a good buddy of mine. His name is Brian Ponciano. He's been an investor for 20 plus years. I got the property, I got it under contract, and I didn't have any rehab experience. I didn't know none of that. So I'm like, hey, I got this house, I'll give it to you for, I got it for 87, 91, 92. Hey, I got it for 87, I'll give it to you for 92K. I mean, this is what the prices were back then,
for sure,
right?
I get
2013.
it, yeah.
And he's like, okay, whatever. He takes the property, and I make $5,000. I assigned the deal, right? I took my interest that I had in this property, and I assigned a deal to this guy for $5,000. I get a check for $5,000. You have to remember, Candy, when I got this check, I'm like, damn, I got a check for $5,000. And all I did was talk to this person, negotiate with this person, put this person on the contract, find the end buyer for this deal, right? I didn't have to work the 60, 70 hours a week that I used, even though 2,400 back.
Exactly.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like it was a matter of hours, right?
Right, yeah.
And that just changed my life forever. And we've done over 1,000 transactions ever since. And I'll tell you what, we became multimillionaires. Look at this, 2013, 2016, July of 2016, we became multimillionaires, okay? Wow. At this point now, you know, we've built a business. We've done, at that point, we've only done like a couple hundred transactions, but we started making so much money that Sal, which is my business partner, and myself, he's an immigrant from Iraq. He's an entrepreneur, right? I'm an immigrant from Mexico. I'm an entrepreneur, right? So we're like, wow, look at all this money that's coming in, millions of dollars. What do we do? We're like, well, why don't we start building other businesses? And that's what happened.
So 2016 is when so 3 years, just so everyone caught that too, 3 years of intense focus, of not giving up, of being relentless. You were able to completely change your family.
We delayed our gratification. I want you to know this, for the first 3 years, Sal and I were only paying ourselves like $5K a month and then $7,500 a month, right? And we were putting
it all back
everything back into the business. And watch this. And I think every business person will appreciate this. Now you and I are talking shop. Watch this. In 2018, me and Sal started taking a salary of $1 million. We started paying ourselves $1 million. He makes $1 million, I make $1 million. Our businesses were already making over 8 figures collectively, okay? 2019, paid ourselves $1 million. 2020, we paid ourselves $1 million. 2019, we paid ourselves $1 million. 2021, we paid ourselves $1 million. 2022, which was last year, I think we paid ourselves a little less. It was like 900K or like 970 something. This year, you want to know what our salary is this year?
What is it?
120,000.
You're going all in again.
120. And then we're taking quarterly dividends and stuff like that, right? But we're going all in again. We're investing into our companies again. And now we're investing into our companies at the 8-figure level. Yeah. You know what I mean? How beautiful is that?
I know, it's awesome.
Right?
Yeah. So just imagine what that's going to compound.
I'm a kid in a candy shop all over again. Yeah. Now I'm taking a shot at $2 billion plays, one of them with Chris Krohn and one of them with Brad Lee, right? I'm partnering up with them on 2 different fronts, and I'm taking my first shot. When you recollect your journey as an entrepreneur, you're like, okay, I took my first 8-figure shot here. I took my first 9-figure shot here. Now we're taking our first, $1 billion shots. We're only 2. This is our first 2 shots. If statistically it's proven that if you take $5 billion shots, one of them will hit.
I didn't know that.
Yep, one of them will hit. Think about it, right? You take enough shots at 5 shots at a 9-figure revenue, right? Yep. Eventually one of them's going to hit. Yep. Right now, our annual revenue goal is to hit $100 million. This year we won't hit it, but I think next year we'll get pretty close.
And I have one final question. I typically go back and forth, and I teed into this in the beginning. But if you were to lose everything right now, and you wake up tomorrow, nobody knows who you are, you don't have any of your companies, none of your business partners, you don't have the beautiful
Do I still have the same knowledge?
You only have the knowledge.
Okay.
And you have to start fresh, trying to build everything back. You have no support, nobody knows who you are, you have no one on social media, you just get your information. What business, what steps, what thing would you do tomorrow morning when you woke up in order to start to build it back?
Simple. I would probably directly go into the real estate investment space, and within 6 months, I would produce my first $1 million.
So say you'd go into wholesaling?
I would go into wholesaling and flipping.
Yeah.
Okay, and within 6 months, not years. Yeah. The first time it took me years, right? Within 6 months, I would make my first $1 million in revenue.
I love it.
Yep.
I think it's so valuable because if we only have the knowledge to start with,
Yep.
it shows if you would go back and do the same thing or kind of do it a little differently, and how much you can condense time.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for this beautiful conversation and
Thank
spending
you.
the
Thanks for
afternoon
having me
with
finally.
us.
God bless you.
It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you.